Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
We'd like to thank Woodbine for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Woodbine open now through December, featuring great racing, including the King's Plate coming up in August, Turf Champions Day with the Woodbine Mile in September, and much, much more. Woodbine Racing, great racing north of the border. Good morning. This is Racing Across America, and I am Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday morning, Preakness morning, a little bit early. Don't forget there's a 10:30 post time today at Pimilco for that really nice Preakness card. Lots of nice undercard stakes as well, so certainly want to take a look at that. Let me update you on what's coming up here at OTB at the Clubhouse Racebook today. If you'd like to swing by, you can pick up a little lunch at Black Bear, but you can hang out with what is sure to be a nice crowd on Preakness Day here at the Clubhouse Racebook, but also put your name in the hat. We will have a Preakness Day bankroll. Select the team at about 2 o'clock. I'll be playing for a few hours on behalf of the team. We'll split up the winnings at the end of the day. Hopefully, having kicked the bankroll way up, that'll be the game plan. So Preakness bankroll here at the Clubhouse Racebook and King of the Hill contest as well. So a couple of fun promotions here at the Racebook on this Saturday, Preakness Day, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Other than that, just tune in and enjoy racing action throughout the day here on Capital OTB TV. And on Capital OTB TV over the next hour, we will feature plenty of conversation about the Preakness and beyond. We'll kick things off with Dave Rodman. We have a few minutes with Dave talking about the Preakness and his thoughts, and also the fact that this is kind of the last hurrah for the Preakness at the current Pimilco. Next year, the Preakness will be at Laurel. They'll tear down the Pimilco facility and build a new one, and they'll be back at Pimilco in 2027. But talk a little bit about the nostalgia with Dave and get some Preakness thoughts. Then Jeremyb Plonk from horseplayernow.com and Countdown to the Crown. We've talked to Jeremy throughout the year. Countdown to the Crown leading up to the Derby and the Triple Crown Series. Now we're in the midst of the Triple Crown, so we pulled Jeremy in to get some thoughts on the Preakness and beyond. And then we'll wrap things up a little bit later with Ellis Starr, national racing analyst from Equibase. We have his thoughts on the Preakness and a couple of undercard stakes as well. So it should be a fun edition of Racing Across America leading into Preakness Day. Let's kick it off. As promised, yesterday we taped all of these with the early start today. We got everybody on board yesterday, including Dave Rodman, long-time track announcer on the Maryland circuit. So up next, Dave Rodman. Joined now by our friend Dave Rodman from Maryland horse racing announcing booth, obviously, with Laurel and Pimilco being in his wheelhouse. And this weekend it's Pimilco and the Preakness. Dave, good morning.
Good morning, Seth.
And the first thing I want to talk about, speaking of Maryland racing, congratulations. You were awarded the Special Award of Merit at the breakfast on Thursday morning. Well deserved. I was reading the release among the past winners: Wayne Lucas, King Leatherberry, Jerry Bailey, Ramon Dominguez, Jim McKay, Chick Lang. Very deserved award. How'd the breakfast go?
Oh, it was great, and I'm just really honored to get that award, especially having my name up there. My 35th Preakness and Preakness 150 of all times to get it with some of the all-time greats, jockeys, trainers, people who have meant so much to Maryland racing. Jim McKay, of course, founder of the Maryland Million, and it could go on and on. But it's, you know, I'm stepping up in company, so to speak, right?
And the release also mentioned, you know, started out as a DJ, and from previous conversations, Marty at the party, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
With the party. I'm not only at the party, but with the party. Yeah,
very good. I thought I remembered that.
I am the party. Okay.
back in the DJ days. Very good. And before we get some thoughts on the Preakness itself, just talk a little bit about, with the whole reconstruction that's going to go on at Pimilco. There has to be a little nostalgia in the booth this weekend.
Yeah, I was just telling somebody I'm going to take a video walking up the stairs to the booth and a panoramic shot, and then take a video leaving the booth. So the last time we'll see it, I really like the booth at Pimilco. It's nice and spacious and comfortable. Good side angles just to the right of the finish line, and whatever the new one looks like, we'll have to deal with. I hear I'm going to be the left of the finish line this time, which whatever. I requested right, and they put me left, but things are apt to change, right?
Very good. And so the game plan is this is the last one at the current Pimilco, and then next year you'll be at Laurel, and then the new Pimilco 2027. Is that correct?
Correct. Laurel Park, I'm sure limited attendance because of the size of the building and parking and other constraints. And then hopefully by in 2027, the new Pimilco will be built, and we'll be back here at Old Hilltop. I guess we'll still call it Old Hilltop because the track configuration is not moving. The turf course and dirt course will remain intact. They're not moving it around as originally planned. And it, of course, gets that name Old Hilltop from the hill that used to be in the infield. So I guess we can still call it Old Hilltop.
Yeah, very well. It'll be the new Old Hilltop. There you go.
New old, or new and old, right?
All right. Before we let you go, let me just get some thoughts. The highlight of the weekend, obviously, is the Preakness, and I couldn't get past journalism. He ran very well in the Derby, and you look at the history of the Preakness, horses coming out of Churchill Downs and coming out of the Derby in particular do very well in the Preakness. So I have him on top, but I thought Clever Again for Steve Asmussen was a little bit interesting. What are your thoughts in the Preakness?
I think American Promise is really the interesting horse for D. Wayne Lucas because he was right up close, settled nicely off a hot pace, ran right into the hot pace in between horses into the turn and simply tired. Now, I think maybe he's a little bit better. He's a little bit better than Virginia Derby. He's a 1:08 one-turn mile. But, he's won 2 turns at Oaklawn. I mean, he's the kind of horse that has speed, and I think will show it, but can settle right off of whoever decides to go to the front. And I don't believe the pace is going to be as scorching as it was in the Kentucky Derby for American Promise, looking for him to run a big one. I mean, I see Journalism probably obviously is the best horse, and American Promise going to try to pull that upset. So it could be another D. Wayne win. Seized the Gray last year, and wow, what a story. Still getting on the pony in the morning at 89 and holding court at the barn. I spoke with him this morning just about the name of a horse that's running a little later today, make sure I had the correct pronunciation, and gave me his time. And still, anybody that walks up to him, he'll give you his time.
It is amazing. 89 years old, and as you say, still gets up on the horse every morning. And American Promise over the past couple of days has been getting some buzz. I'm going to be intrigued to see. He's 15-1 on the morning line. I'm going to be interested to see if he gets some play in there, again, off the buzz over the last few days.
Have a card.
And speaking of Lucas, just before we let you go, it seems like the coverage yesterday of the breakfast, the Alibi breakfast on Thursday, seems like there was some fun interplay between Lucas and Baffert.
Yeah, and Mark Cassie too. I thought he was at a good dry wit humor. So it was that was really the first time I actually got the award. I stayed pretty much for the whole thing. Usually I'm scrambling around in the morning, getting things ready. I do stop in, but enjoyed all the banter and the alibis, so to speak, and the kidding and the ribbing and the humor.
Yeah, and again, congratulations on your award. Our friend Tom Law also walked away with an award, Tom Law from the Saratoga Special. So, again, congratulations, Dave. We know it's a busy weekend, so we'll let you go, but we appreciate the conversation and have a great Preakness.
Thanks, Seth, and let's have a good one, everybody, and pick some winners.
Absolutely. Dave, appreciate it. We'll talk again.
Okay, bye.
Dave Rodman from Pimilco, Preakness on Saturday afternoon. Back after this.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Joined now by our friend Jeremyb Plonk, who better to talk to in the middle of the Triple Crown than the author of Road to the Crown. Again, we've had Jeremy in throughout the season. Road to the Crown comes out every Friday, early on, looking at the allowance winners and the stakes winners that play on the road to the Triple Crown. And now here we are in the midst of the Triple Crown season. So again, get some thoughts from Derby and Derby review, Preakness preview coming up. Jeremy, good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you. And yeah, we're right in the middle of it. I guess sovereignty isn't, but we are. And we got plenty still to talk about, even without the Derby winner.
Yeah. And I said, for those of us, we have the Belmont right up the road from us here again this year. So we're looking forward to it. And for those of us, a win by journalism this weekend, maybe not as good as a Triple Crown, obviously, but pretty good, because then you'd have the showdown up here.
Yeah, if he goes on, if they decide to run in all three legs of the Triple Crown, or it sets up a winner-take-all in the Travers, right? Something like that. So I think Saratoga's the beneficiary of all this, either way you look at it.
Yeah, that's why maybe jumping the gun. Journalism may win, and then they might say, yeah, maybe we'll skip. Yeah, so we'll have to see how it all plays out, certainly. Before we get into it, always like to give you the chance. Again, Countdown to the Crown comes out on Fridays. Check that out. Always great info there. But also, I saw you and Scott Shapiro took a look at some of the action at Pimilco this weekend on YouTube.
Yeah, we've got a podcast there. You can check that out at the Horse Player Now YouTube page. Scott and I go through 8 stakes races over the course of Friday and Saturday. And, of course, Jeff Siegel and I typically do that podcast, but my man is on the mend right now with some health issues. So Scott's doing a good job deputizing for the GOAT, as we say, Jeff Siegel, and certainly want to send best wishes out there. And anybody listening who's been a fan of Jeff over the years, send out your good wishes to him for better health.
Yeah, I saw a tweet he sent out. He said he's headed into the doctor, I think, today, or so he wasn't going to be able to put out some pics or whatever, but he said he's feeling, good, and so we're absolutely sending best wishes out to Jeff Siegel. But again, folks can check out your work on YouTube for some other selections. We'll get to at least a couple here this morning as well. But before we do that, wanted to go back and get your thoughts on the Derby. I thought overall it was a really good weekend, Friday and Saturday. I thought you had winners throughout the weekend. Despite some weather that was a little bit dicey, I think things played out with horses that will play into their various divisions going forward, and that includes, obviously, the Kentucky Derby. We'll watch the stretch run again here. I had liked Sovereignty for a couple of weeks. I said go back to that Fountain of Youth. That closing effort was phenomenal, and I thought the second in the Florida Derby primed him for a good run in the Derby. That's the way it wound up. Sovereignty getting the victory over Journalism. Baeza second, Final Gambit third, Owen Almighty, Final Gambit fourth, Owen Almighty fifth, and Burnham Square sixth, Sandman seventh. So logicals were all kind of in play, but what was your takeaway from the Derby?
Yeah, when you think about Tappan Street coming out, the Florida Derby winner, and the Wood winner, Rodriguez, coming out of the race, there were 2 really legitimate American win contenders, and anybody else to me would have been quite a surprise. So it was Sovereignty from the Florida Derby runner-up and how good he was in the Fountain of Youth, and then it was obviously Journalism from the West Coast. Baeza probably outran expectations in running a really good third in here. With the bad post position, with the light experience. The only X factor in the race to me was the horse from Japan who didn't run, much at all after being bumped around towards the beginning of the race in Luxor Cafe. That was the big disappointment for me in the race, but that was the X factor and the unknown. What we knew after watching these horses from January all the way through were that the top two in this race were clearly the best and during the course of the campaign. And the late hat thrown into the ring by Baeza, that turned out to be exactly what we saw in the Kentucky Derby. Those were your top three. No big surprises necessarily in the horses that ran 1, 2, 3. I think the stretch run was a little surprising to me, though, I'll be honest, because I thought if we saw Journalism in the lead at the top of the stretch or an upper stretch in the Derby, that there would be no way he would lose the race. His brisk late pace figures just towered over the field. The only horse who ran as fast as he did late in races was Final Gambit, who was going to be coming from 20th, 19th in the race. And so you knew he had a jump on that horse. I just didn't think anybody could possibly outkick that horse if he had his head in front in the upper stretch, and Sovereignty did. What happened in this race, it's hard to say, but it was the first time that anybody's been on the outside of Journalism in a race. It's the first time he took a left-handed stick because there was a horse who was outside, and the jock Umberto Rispoli had to go to the left hand because he couldn't go to the right because there was a horse right there. So he didn't respond to left-hand urging as well as you would hope. You say, well, he only got beat a length and 3/4, whatever it was. You know, he didn't run a bad race. But his brisk late pace figure dropped all the way to an 88. He had been running consistently 105, 108, 109. So he did not come home at all like he had in his other races. Now, maybe it was the 1.25 miles. This was a longer race, right? Maybe he didn't have the same punch late. Maybe it was because of the faster early pace in some of the races he's been in. Maybe it was because of the mud that he didn't have the same kind of stamina and finish with the same kind of strength. He still outfinished, 17 others in there when running second. But it wasn't as strong a finish as I had hoped to see from him. But there may be some reasons for that.
I will say, again, I like Sovereignty. I like Journalism. I agree with you. They were the two that you had to get beyond. Got a nice price on Sovereignty. I will say that. But that's
that was amazing price. Yeah.
And it really so it was 7-1, but it was closer to 8-1. But it was not too far away from post time. We were sitting at 9-1, and so I was licking my chops there. But then
legitimately, he should have been 4-1.
Yeah,
I mean, he should have been the 4-1 second choice in that race. It should have been 5-2 and 4-1, and then everybody else kind of a little bit higher. But that's the novelty and the mainstream of the Derby win pool, right? I mean, when you look at the exotics didn't, right? The lowest exacta on the board was Journalism Sovereignty. People who bet knew the two best horses in that race, And if we look at the multi-race payoffs that ended in that race, the horses who were getting bet in the win pool that shouldn't have weren't getting bet in anything else other than that casual pool. And there's so much casual money in the Kentucky Derby that makes a difference, But, I mean, that was a good time. I'm not an advocate of betting to win in the Kentucky Derby because even at 7-1, it's a $16 horse, and 16 pays 16 on Saturday or Wednesday. And there are a lot easier horses to find that pay $16 than to beat 18 others in the Kentucky Derby. But when you talk about overlays, that will go down as one of the better overlays of a logical horse in recent memory.
Yeah, totally agree. And as you say, you have a lot more casual money there. You have a 20-horse field or a 19-horse field in this instance. But so they were kind of logical. I agree with you. Baeza ran very well. Final Gambit coming from on the backstretch, he was totally out of it. That was a big stretch run from Final Gambit. Owen Almighty, I thought, ran decently. But
yeah.
I'm going to pull up because I put together for social media last week, I took kind of a close-up view of Burnham Square. And if folks are, I'll see if you agree, but I think if folks are coming away with a trip note, it's going to be Burnham Square, who, as we see in the video I put together, sitting nice on the backstretch, saving ground on the rail, and then Admire Daytona, the Japanese horse, kind of ranges up on the outside and cuts in just at about the time that Admire Daytona says, I'm done for today. And so he backs up. Burnham Square on the far turn loses 3 or 4 lengths because of that, and then has to get position, get the momentum going again. So I thought the 6th place finish from Burnham Square was impressive despite the trip, or beyond the trip.
Yeah, a little devil's advocate to that is he lost his spot, right? I mean, he was there, and he didn't accelerate and keep his position and let Enviro Daytona come over and cross over and take that spot from him. So that's kind of, to me, a little bit of a knock in that he was running one pace. But the fact that he was able to kind of come back on again and get back to sixth was, to his credit, he saved a lot of ground. You knew Brian Hernandez was going to ride him that way. That's the way Brian rides Churchill Downs. You know, he's kind of the modern Calvin Burrell. He and Corey Lannery just love to ride the pine there at Churchill. Wisely so. He won the Kentucky Derby with Wise Dan with the same kind of trip last year. So he saved every inch of ground. He did have that hesitation there where he had to wait, but at least he didn't have to slam on the brakes. He didn't check hard, anything like that. He just had to wait. And then when he was able to wait and get around that horse, he came back home with a decent run. I'm not sure Burnham Square is absolutely top shelf, and I don't think Ian Wilkes thinks so either, because they're not even going to go on to the Belmont Stakes. They're going to aim towards the local race. They've got a gelding, the Matt Wynn Stakes coming up. I believe that's on the undercard of Stephen Foster Day in June. And they're, they've got a gelding, and they're going to play the long game with him, and he can make a ton of money and be, Pacific Classic winner at age 4, and be running in Breeders' Cups like Fort Larned and stuff like that as an older horse. I think they've got a good future with him, but if he were to run back in the Belmont, I think he might be overbet off that trip note. But the fact that he's not going to run in the Belmont, he's going to be a short price where he shows up next anyway on the drop in class.
Yeah, that was interesting when Ian Wilkes said we're going to go to the Matt Wynn. But he said, and I'm wondering, just kind of reset, a little confidence builder, go on the Matt Wynn. And then he said, we do well there, we come out, then maybe we look for the Haskell or the Travers. Yeah,
I think so. And, Burnham Square is a horse who's kind of had a hard campaign. He ran a lot of route races, right? And he ran in 2 legs of the Florida Derby Series before heading to Keeneland on top of it. So he ran 3 two-turn routes, I believe 2 mile and an eighth and a mile and a 16th, something like that, or 3 mile and a 16th or something at Gulfstream. So he's had a lot of routes under his belt, then going through, obviously, with the Bluegrass and then the Kentucky Derby. So, kind of getting him reset and set for the future. I don't know if he's a better Haskell horse or a better Travers horse moving forward. I think the mile and an eighth might be better for him, but the Haskell usually plays it as a speed race, right? And I don't know that he's necessarily a speed horse, so it might be how that race shakes out. He might be better off in the Travers, but I think the mile and an eighth distance would probably be better for him than in the Haskell. He's actually a better Jim Dandy horse than anything. A mile and an eighth at Saratoga, he's a really good-looking horse for the Jim Dandy. That might be his better race than any of them coming up this summer.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it. Ian, as I say, Ian Wilkes mentioned the Travers and the Haskell, but you might be right. The Jim Dandy might be right in his wheelhouse. All right, let's shift attention. There was a little review. Now let's do a little preview. The feature race on Saturday, obviously, the Grade 1 Preakness, $2 million up for grabs, mile and 3/16 for the 3-year-olds. I have to admit, I couldn't get past journalism, looking at historical trends. The last 24, not counting pandemic year 2020, but going back to 2000, the last 24 Preakness runnings, 18 winners have come out of Churchill Downs. 16 of those came out of the Derby, and I just thought I couldn't get past journalism. He was the best horse anyway in here, but you look at trends like that. But a horse I find interesting is Clever Again for Steve Asmussen. I'm going to pull up the win in the stake at Oaklawn, the Hot Springs. We'll see Clever Again get a nice victory in only the 3rd career start with a 101 buyer. So he's an interesting horse to me. River Thames is in the mix. I still have Sandman in my mix. I'm going to be interested to see if he can rebound in here. What are your thoughts on the Preakness?
Yeah, I think you've probably got the right X factor in Clever Again, right? I mean, he's kind of the one who's new to the scene. Yes, he ran at Oaklawn, and that was the Hot Springs Stakes, but it was the day after the Arkansas Derby, right? So he wasn't kind of in the mainstream thought as we're kind of looking towards the Triple Crown. So he really is a new shooter. When we talk about some of these horses, like, when you talk about the Pletcher horse in here, River Thames, he's been on the trail, and then they skip the Derby and come here. But really, when you talk about a new face to the scene, Clever Again certainly fits that bill, as would, the Baffert horse in here coming off the Derby Day allowance win. And so, you kind of got those two, goal-oriented and Clever Again, who are the new faces to this scene that can change things up a little bit. They're both front-running types. There is a good amount of speed. In fact, maybe too much speed in this Preakness Stakes. So I think they're going to go pretty darn quick in here, but I still think if you're going to be journalism, it'll be somebody on the front end because they'll just run a freakish effort. Maybe we get a sloppy track. Maybe we get another wire job like Seize the Gray last year. That's the way I think the recipe if you're going to beat him. I don't think anybody from a stalking or closing position is going to outrun him unless he takes a major step back. The Derby wasn't his absolute best effort, I don't think, in journalism, but I don't think that necessarily the wheels are falling off either. So I think even if he runs a B-plus race for him, it's good enough to beat this group. Because remember, it's still a mile and 3/16. This is still a long-distance race for these horses. You talk about the Derby at the mile and a quarter and the traditional Belmont at a mile and a half. And you think, well, the Preakness is the speed race because it's only a mile and 3/16, but that's still a 16th of a mile, 110 yards longer than any of the big preps, And we're always wondering going into that last round of preps who's going to handle the mile and an eighth, So there's no guarantee these horses who have some brilliance about them, the Clever Again, the global goal-oriented, even Pletcher's runner River Thames. There's no guarantee that a mile and 3/16 is going to work out for those horses, But we know for sure that journalism can handle some distance, and he should just outclass the group. I think he has to regress mightily in order to get beat. He's got to run something in like a C-level race for him to get beat in here. He should be fine, and if the track comes up wet, he handled that, hurdle at Churchill Downs. Unless somebody freaks on the front end and goes out and just runs, a tour de force on the front, he should get through this.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do with goal-oriented. That one scares me. But River Thames I did have in my mix. It's Pletcher, it's Irad Ortiz. Going to take a look at the Bluegrass where River Thames is going to run third. The winner's going to be Burnham Square, the 3, number 5 East Avenue second, and River Thames third, but a close-up third, less than a length out of it. And I will say, going 2 back, the Fountain of Youth, again, that was just a crazy performance by Sovereignty. Mid-stretch, I thought River Thames was going to go 3 for 3 in the career with the stakes debut win in the Fountain of Youth, but he just got caught by Sovereignty late. So I think this is kind of an up-and-comer for Todd Pletcher, and he's very interesting to me on Saturday. But you feel that maybe the distance is going to be a question mark for River Thames?
Yeah, I think on the pedigree, that's where you've got to worry about him. He's by McLean's Music, who's the sprinter. He's out of a discreet cat mare, who's a miler. And that race was excellent. There's no doubt about it. He ran an excellent race at a mile and 16th at Gulfstream in the Fountain of Youth. But the only issue with that race is it was the 16th full finish line, right? So they used the short stretch there for that race. That wasn't a full stretch run. And you wonder how this horse is going to finish up in a race. His brisk late pace figure in the Bluegrass when he had a full stretch run was only 85. I don't think that's going to be good enough to hold off, some strong finishers. And then will he be fast enough to get in front of the real speed in this race? Because I don't think he's like go to the front speed, but I think he's going to want to sit third maybe down the back stretch. You got to think that Clever Again is going to come hustling out of there. Goal-oriented, obviously got speed. American Promise is not waiting on anybody. They're going with American Promise. So Clever Again, American Promise are probably the 2 fastest in here. And then you wonder, where does Goal-oriented and River Thames line up behind them, Pay Billy, some of the others? If River Thames can't get in front of other horses and can't finish with any starch at a mile and 3/16, that's no lead, no pass. There's no route to victory in that, right? If you're not in front at some point and you can't pass horses, I don't think you can win. So I think River Thames, a really good performance for him, would be 3rd or 4th in here. But I'm going to take a chance because he's 9-2 in the morning line. It's Pletcher and Irad, and they're probably going to be an underlay. This is one horse I'm going to leave off my tickets because you can't play them all, especially if you've got a 3-5, 4-5 even money winner on top in your exactas. So I've got to kind of narrow the exactas down there. And River Thames isn't going to make the cut for me. But I think if this race was shorter, I think he would certainly be much more in the mix.
Let me ask you about a couple others that I find interesting. I've got Sandman in my mix down in the 3rd spot. I have it Journalism over Clever Again, Sandman, and then River Thames. And I'm going to look for a rebound from Sandman, but he is very interesting. John Velasquez jumping on board off of that Derby kind of dud. We'll see what he does. As I say, I have him in the mix. And a horse I didn't have in my mix, But this week, I've heard some folks kind of flirting around with, and I had Dave Rodman on earlier, and Dave mentioned American Promise from Wayne Lucas, and certainly with the Wayne Lucas name associated, he has some interest. The Virginia Derby win 2 back, I don't know whether I'm pulling the trigger on that, but as I say, there's a little buzz on American Promise. So your thoughts, Sandman and American Promise?
Well, I like American Promise's chance to pull the upset more than Sandman, actually, because of what I talked about earlier. Is if you're going to beat journalism, I think it's going to be somebody who freaks on the front end. And American Promise is either going to be first or second early in this race. It just depends how fast they want to go with Clever again. But American Promise could be one that just kind of speed pops him. Remember, when he won that Virginia Derby, that race was 7 weeks out from the Kentucky Derby. It was kind of no man's land. It was no man's land for a reason. There was never a prep that week because it was too close to get another prep in, and it was too far away to train up to the Kentucky Derby. But Churchill wanted, and the governor of Virginia wanted the Virginia Derby to be a Kentucky Derby prep race. And in order to get 200 or 300 new slot machines in at Colonial Downs, they went ahead and moved the race to the spring. They achieved what they wanted. They got a nice day of racing there in March for a couple days there at Colonial Downs. But what they ended up with is a horse who was kind of stuck, And so he wasn't prepped properly up to the Kentucky Derby. He pressed the pace there, stopped and faded. Once a quitter quits, it really doesn't matter how far they get beat. You know how that goes. So I wouldn't look at his finish in the Derby and say completely overmatched. He was outrun by the other speed in the Derby. This race probably won't be as fast. He can take him a little farther. If Clever again doesn't go for some reason, maybe he stumbles coming out or they, heaven forbid, take a hold of him and American Promise can get flying out there. Crazier things have happened. I think he's a horse who's in the mix for the rebound. We saw Louis Quatorze do that in 1996. Run 6th in the Derby and then go right to the front in the Preakness, 16th in the Derby, then go right to the front in the Preakness and go wire to wire. It certainly can happen. Lucas has won this race 7 times. I didn't see Seize the Gray winning it last year, so is this horse a bigger long shot than Seize the Gray? Maybe, because I think you've got a stronger favorite in this year's Derby than last year's, in journalism, but still, I think he can hold for a share. I wouldn't be surprised if American Promise is part of the exact or the try.
Interesting. And Sandman?
Look, I'm at some point Sandman's going to make a fool out of me, or I'm going to be right on him all along. I think he has been the horse who has benefited most from race shape of anybody I've seen this year on the trail. Those races at Oaklawn went so fast early and so slow late that they just kind of flipped the table, And so I think he's kind of been the beneficiary of some great setup. He got a great setup in the Kentucky Derby as well, right? I mean, all the closers fired. The horses you thought were going to rally in the Kentucky Derby, every one of them fired except him, And so I just don't think he closes with the kind of punch that you would expect. I think the Damn Side pedigree leaves him a little bit light on endurance, and I think he's actually going to be a better middle distance horse. He reminds me a lot of War of Will, but now you talk Mark Cassidy, this horse has the exact same record, 3 for 9 lifetimes, coming off a 7th place finish in the Kentucky Derby, exact same thing that War of Will did before he rebounded and won the Preakness Stakes for Mark Cassidy. So you say that sets up, but the final tale on War of Will is he turned out to be a Grade 1 winning turf miler. And I kind of think that Sandman's actual late kick isn't in these long-distance races. It'll actually be in shorter races going forward. He might turn out to be a really good middle-distance horse. I don't know about turf, but certainly by Capit, you could certainly see him being on the grass. He could end up being like War of Will, where, a year from now as a 4-year-old, he's winning something like the Maker's Mark Mile at Keeneland. I wouldn't be surprised if that's actually what turns out to be his best trip.
Yeah, interesting. There's no question that Arkansas Derby pace-wise completely set up for him. So it jumps off the page. But, you have to really look at the pace there and then put it in perspective.
But this race could melt down, too. This race could absolutely melt down, and that's why I think Sandman is an exotic contender in this race. I just don't think if the race sets up for somebody to finish, I just don't see him out finishing journalism, right? So if somebody doesn't freak on the front end and just go wire to wire and they start to come back, then I think journalism wins the race for sure, So I can't see him winning the race, but there is a good enough pace set up in this race for him to run second or third. I don't think that's out of the question.
Very good. And we were talking before we went on the air, and I said, do you have any clever ideas otherwise. And you said, let's take a look at the Sir Barton. This is a fun race every year on the undercard, being also for 3-year-olds. But because it is on the undercard of the Preakness, these are typically 3-year-olds. They're late bloomers or up-and-comers kind of a thing, and I think that's the case again this year. Horse like Invictus may turn out to be a 3-year-old player as the year goes along, but only a couple of starts so far for Brad Cox. Similar scenario for him and Just a Fair Shake. But you had a horse that may offer up a little bit of value in here. What are your thoughts in race number 10 on Saturday, the Sir Barton?
I'm going to take a horse who's 15-1 in the morning line. Good post draw from the 2-hole here for Best Friend Rocket. It's Lucas. It's Nick Juarez. It's going to be the same strategy. I think they're going to show some pace in here from the inside. Same strategy that we'll see with American Promise. And you know what Lucas can do at Pimilco with these 3-year-olds this time of year? Like we said, 7-time winner of the Preakness Stakes. I think this horse is actually placed in a really good spot. He did not, finish in the Arkansas Derby, but he was part of that ridiculous chase of, Cornucopian, who was running off like a maniac that day. So he ended up 8th in the Arkansas Derby, but it's a class drop back. His previous 2 races were wins. I think he's kind of third start of the year. I think he's not over-raced. I think he could run a good one here, and he's by Curlin. Curlin, of course, won the Preakness Stakes back in 2007, and people think, well, okay, maybe the Curlins will like it at Pimlico. It's not a maybe. They do like it. He is one of the most dominant sires you've seen in a horse-for-course sire angle that I've followed. And especially in a boutique meet like Keeneland or a boutique meet like Pimlico, I really like to see sires that have a lot of success over that track because, frankly, the horses who are running, even on an everyday card, don't have that many starts over that track lifetime because they don't run but a week or 2 a year. So the Curlins win an extreme percentage, over 30% winners at Pimlico on the main track. They love this racetrack. Best Friend Rocket is by Curlin. I'm looking forward to him being a horse for course with a great post, aggressive ride, and we'll see if Lucas can't get a stakes win before the Preakness.
Yeah, you may have talked me into it. I hadn't used him, but as you were talking, I'm looking at a price. He is very interesting. Has the bullet work coming in. As the name indicates with Rocket, it's a Frank Fletcher horse, and I looked down, and sure enough, started the career with Bill Mott, but now interesting with Wayne Lucas. I like that in the Sir Barton. Number 2, Best Friend Rocket. Jeremy, always appreciate the visit. And again, great job. Countdown to the Crown leading into the season and now through the season as well. So we appreciate the thoughts for the weekend, and we'll talk again.
Good luck, everybody out there. Enjoy the Preakness.
Appreciate it. Jeremyb, horseplayernow.com. Back right after this. It only takes one upset to make history, and now you can be part of Saratoga's long tradition at the Dark Horse Mercantile. The Dark Horse Mercantile offers a carefully curated selection of clothing, gifts, and home decor from one-of-a-kind vintage racing memorabilia to select brands like Barber and Under Armour, as well as exclusive Dark Horse branded merchandise. So celebrate the Dark Horse in all of us at the Dark Horse Mercantile, downtown Saratoga, where the smart bet is always the Dark Horse.
You like free money? Well, Capital OTB gives its players plenty of opportunities to cash in. At Capital OTB, there are so many ways for horse players to receive bonus dollars by simply participating in promotions such as our bankrolls, bounty bets, online handicapping contests, and much, much more. Plus, with Capital OTB's Player Rewards program, you get actual cash back. So what are you waiting for? Log on today at CapitalOTB.com or CapitalOTBBet.com and claim your free money.
Haven't signed up for a Capital OTB account yet? Now's the time to take advantage of the sign-up bonus. Open up a new account with $200 or more, bet $400 by the end of the month, and receive a bonus $200 into your account. Plus, you can take advantage of everything an OTB account has to offer. Wagering from any device, live streaming, racing info, past performances, online promotions, and more. Sign up today and take advantage of the new account bonus. Details at CapitalOTB.com. Happy to be joined now by our friend Ellis Starr, national racing analyst for Equibase and more. You can check out his Twitter feed, points you to various locations where you can find selections and whatnot. But I thought we'd plug in and see what Ellis has to say about some races on the Preakness card. Ellis, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Good morning, racing fans. Happy Preakness Day.
Happy to have you on board. And before we get to the Preakness, I have to go back because we haven't talked to you since. I texted you with the National Handicap Championship. You were out there playing. You had a couple of entries, and congratulations out of a field of, some people had multiple entries, but there was almost 800 entries playing, and you wound up, I believe, number 34. I looked a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Wound up with a nice 5-figure payday. So congratulations. Nice trip to Vegas.
Thank you very much. Yeah, 623 actual bodies, 800 entries, and I had 2, and one of them did very well. I was very pleased with my first 2 days, and really, it's hard to be in a position to win after the first couple of days unless you're within like $40 of the top few, and I was about 65, and it was kind of tough, but it was still a lot of fun, and I'm very proud of the accomplishment. Thank you very much for your compliment.
Yeah, no, you make it to Sunday and you get away with some money. Congratulations on that. Very good. And I will say the winner this year, Dan Piazza, I believe.
Yep.
Boy, start to finish. He was on the front end the whole way. That was a nice performance.
Yeah, he was good, and it's very nice. He actually is one of our race lens users, and he used it every day. I was talking to him and his friends before the cocktail party, or the dinner, I should say, after on the final, after the contest was over, and he said every day they went up to their room and they said, "What is race lens like? What is race lens like?" So they were using the True Odds feature, which is a more predictive part of it, in addition to regular handicapping. So I'm very pleased that it was able to help him get a big score.
Yeah, nice. And we've had you on before talking race lines. We'll have to do that again to remind people about the product and what that offers via EchoBase. We'll definitely schedule that at some point. Before we get to Preakness, also, just wanted to go back a couple of weeks and give your thoughts on Derby. I was one of my better Derbies. I was on Sovereignty for a couple of weeks, and I thought Fountain of Youth was very good for him, very good. And then I thought the second in the Florida Derby had him set up, so I was perfectly happy with the result. Journalism ran well. Baeza ran very well. Final Gambit with a big closing effort. Burnham Square, I thought, had a little trip maybe people can take note of, but what was your takeaway from the Derby?
Well, I was like you. I was on Sovereignty actually all the way until Sunday night, Monday, when I wrote my analysis, and I made as we do sometimes, I got a little too confident, I guess, and thought Journalism was the better horse, but I ended up playing it okay. But I liked Sovereignty. I agreed with the Florida Derby. He didn't have to win that race. It was a great setup for him. It was certainly a great race in terms of that battle down the stretch. Baeza ran good, just a little short of experience. I took stands against Burnham Square and Chapman. I was happy. And my analysis of the race, I was really happy with the pace analysis, as I predicted all the horses that were going to melt down, and I had nothing to do with any of them. In spite of the fact Citizen Bull came out and took some horses out at the start, I thought there was going to be a really hot pace. So I was very pleased that, so many things can go differently than you see in a race like that. I was very good, and of course looking forward to Sovereignty in the Belmont, and a really good matchup with him and Journalism later in the year, maybe in the Travers.
Yeah, I think the 3-year-olds are kind of shaping up to be interesting, no doubt about it. And we'll talk about a couple of the 3-year-old races on Saturday at Pimilco. But obviously, let's start with the Preakness. Grade 1 event, $2 million, mile and 3/16. I just could not get past Journalism. The trend says Churchill horses and Derby horses in particular do very well in the Preakness. But I do think Clever again, maybe Clever in here, pun intended. Sandman, I'm going to look for him to rebound. I have him in my mix. River Thames. But as I say, couldn't get past Journalism. But looking at your analysis on EchoBase, you may have a Clever idea. Your thoughts in the Preakness?
Well, first of all, the morning line making is so tough, but I think the 6-1 on Goal is going to be reset because it's Baffert and because he's won so many. I have the note somewhere. Was it 6, 7, 8, 9 of these? Just a lightly raced horse, the spoiler. But what's really interesting about Goal Oriented, and I'll certainly get to the favorites in a second, Seth, is that, he's got the rail and the speed. And the mile and 3/16 is a perfect race for tactical speed. We've had some horses come from behind, but a horse like this that just can control the pace the way he did in that allowance race. And according to the EchoBase speed figures, he had a 109 on that race early in the day, race 3 on Derby Day, and Sovereignty a 103. So he ran faster. Not only did he run faster, he was never going to lose. The margin of 1.5 at the top of the stretch, 3/4 at the wire. I watched the race. He was never going to lose. And Pratt's going to ride him just marvelously here. Certainly, another thing about him is he didn't necessarily need the lead. He broke fifth, and then he was third at about the 16th pole, so going into the first turn, and then he moved up. So I don't think they'll need the lead because Clever Again may go. And Clever Again's a very interesting horse, as you mentioned, coming off a big race at Oaklawn, the Hot Springs Stakes. And he had a 108 equibase speed figure, so that's the second highest equibase speed figure in the field, tied with Heart of Honor out of his UAE Derby race. And Clever Again's interesting. So I kind of see Jose Ortiz sending Clever Again. Pratt is going to allow that to happen because goal-oriented debut win at 6 furlongs was from off the pace, very mature. And I could see those two 1-2, and that's a question of what journalism's going to do in terms of making up ground. He won't be 10th as he was in Derby. He'll probably be 4th or 5th. But I could really see him not having enough late pace to run into if these two go just a little bit slowly. So goal-oriented for me is a strong win bet at 2-1 or more. And Clever Again, who opens at 5-1, but he's going to be higher than goal-oriented because I think goal-oriented is going to get bet down. Is also a bet at 5-2 or more, and then journalism. And I might play Heart of Honor because he ran okay in the UAE Derby, and before that closing, he might get into second or third. So I'll play him in stackers and tries. In second, I'll play Sandman in second and third in tries, but I'm going to key goal-oriented and Clever Again on top in the race. I just think they're both lightly raced horses peaking, and they ran faster than journalism in the Derby.
Let me ask you about a couple of horses in your opinion. River Thames. Last week, people were asking me, and I said, I may be on River Thames. I now have him down in the 4th spot because they just found others a little more interesting. But boy, that Fountain of Youth, halfway down the stretch, I thought he was going to win until Sovereignty came like a freight train. And I thought the 3rd place finish in the Bluegrass was okay. So River Thames is interesting. And there's been a number of people this week that have tossed American Promise out there off the Virginia Derby. I can't get that excited, but American Promise has got a little buzz. What your thoughts on River Thames and American Promise?
Well, American Promise first. I kind of thought, well, of course, I knew he'd melt down the Derby because his best race came wire to wire when he broke his maiden, and then the Virginia Derby is a 1-turn mile, and it was very significant in terms of it looked like he could kind of come from off the pace, but he really wasn't that kind of style because he went 45-2. 45-3 just off the lead there. I think Juarez is going to have to send him. I don't see the horse closing at all, so he's going to get into it, and maybe he'll find himself, right there with Clever Again battling, which of course helps goal-oriented. River Thames is interesting. His pattern is good, 91, 98, 103 on figures. Of course, getting beat to Sovereignty is no knock. He's going to be bet heavier than 9-2, I think, based on the Bluegrass and the fact that he's, a potential spoiler in the race. I could see him coming in second or third, but I took a stand against him in exactas tries just because there's going to be a lot better value, I think, on Heart of Honor at 12-1 and even Clever Again.
All right, sounds good. I mentioned we would talk about a couple of 3-year-old races, and it's always an interesting race on the Preakness card, the undercard, the Sir Barton. For 3-year-olds going 1 mile and 3/16. But again, being on the same card as the Preakness, these typically are up-and-comers or late bloomers or whatever, horses that are, showed some promise early, then maybe went in the wrong way and are coming back and trying to rebound a little bit. And I think that's the case, at least up-and-comers with Invictus and him, who are interesting in here. Just a Fair Shake. It's an interesting bunch in here in the Sir Barton. How did you see it?
Well, I'll start with the old cliche. I think we've talked about it before. You never bet a horse at low odds doing 7 for the first time, and at least for win bets. And both Crudo and Invictus are doing 2 things for the first time. They're stepping from maiden to stakes, and they're stepping from 1 turn to 2 turns. And I think they're both kind of vulnerable in this race. And I went and looked at the horses I kind of thought had a chance, and I put them in order of morning line odds. And I've got to start with Best Friend Rocket. Moved to the Lucas barn from Brittany Russell. Didn't do well for Mott, which is kind of weird, but maybe, Mott just takes his time, and they weren't happy waiting. Went to Russell's barn, won by 8. 2 races later, won by 5, and then moved to Lucas, was allowed to mature December to March, came back and won at Oaklawn, and that was a really salty $200,000 optional allowance race at Oaklawn. And then, they took a shot with the Arkansas Derby, and I'm going to draw a line through it. This is just an interesting horse. Good tactical speed, can sit first, second, or third early. And it's Lucas, and the horse costs $575K. Big 59 and change workout since leaving Churchill, 15-1, just way out of line for me. Similarly, the 8 Authentic Gallop for Tom Amos, exactly the same pattern. Wins at Oaklawn, first level allowance, very solidly in February. They decide the Virginia Derby, runs lousy, and now basically he's in this restricted stakes. They both look good here at 8-1, so I'm gonna bet win bets on Best Friend Rocket and Authentic Gallop here. I will bet them in exactas. I'm just going to split the favorites. I would never bet in exactas. That includes Crudo and Invictus first, second themselves. But so I'll play, Best Friend Rocket and Authentic Gallop over those two plus Crudo and Invictus. I'll also throw in the 9, Just a Fair Shake, who has done nothing wrong in his career. He's second in the Tessio to pay Billy. He's running in the Preakness. So it's going to be that exacted, but I'm looking for an upset here in this race. I think Lucas might have another seize the day, but not in the Preakness, of course, in the Sir Barton instead.
Well, I'm smiling because I did not use Best Friend Rocket, but earlier I talked to Jeremyb Plonk, and we also took a look at the Sir Barton, and he likes Best Friend Rocket. And as he was talking, when we got done, I said, while you were talking, I'm looking at the horse, and I'm kind of interested myself now at 15-1 on the morning line. And now that both of you guys have thrown them out, the Bullet workout, Wayne Lucas at Pimilco on Preakness Day, I certainly will have him in my mix at this point. Best Friend Rocket.
And he's 3 for 600, and he's got the most wins of any horse in the field so far. So there are a lot to let. Plus, he's gone 2 turns when Crudo and Invictus haven't yet.
Yeah, and I said interesting, as the name Rocket implies, a Frank Fletcher runner, and because of that started the career with Bill Mott. Interesting now with Wayne Lucas. All right, let's take a look at one more earlier on the card. Again, 3-year-olds, but 3-year-olds sprinting in the Chick Lang. 1,900 in here for Tom Morley coming off the big win. Now, it was a maiden breaker, so this is a class step, certainly, but that one intrigues me because certainly it's a horse that showed some promise in the first 3 starts, most recently, that maiden breaker. Wesley Ward has Touchy in here. Retribution for Cherie DeVoe could be interesting. Rapoli, but with Joe Sharp has Ancient World. Interesting addition of the Chick Lang. How did you see it?
Well, you got to go to one actually left out, Faster Gator, another one adds some mix because he just ran second in the Bayshore battle head and head the entire length of the stretch, and he's a good one. But again, I'm keying on a higher odds horse to start here, and that's going to be Normandy Coast for Eddie Keneally. Look, 3-year-old stakes races this time of year, sprints are very salty. And you got a horse in Normandy Coast that just won the $300,000 Palisades, albeit on a sloppy track. But he won it really nicely by 3.5 lengths, beating a decent horse named Long Neck Paula, who I think was entered today in scratch, or entered Friday, I should say, in scratch at Pimlico on one of the stakes. Luis Saez is riding. The horses won 3 of 4 sprints. Lost his first sprint ran 4th at 6 furlongs in January, and then if you ignore the route, which is the Gotham, he's won 3 sprints in a row. He was 5-2 in the Palisades. He's 12-1 starting odds here. I think he's got all the tools. The other one's Keep It Easy, who won the Ed Brown Stakes in November at Churchill at the end of November, also a $225,000 stake. It's the equivalent of the Chick Lang for sure. Won it by 5. I don't know what happened to the Saratoga Special off the big win at Churchill last June, but came back, 3 months later and won this Ed Brown. And then again, they decided to try the Derby Trail, Fountain of Youth, just draw a line through it. He's 4-1, so I prefer him less for a win bet than Normandy Coast. And then, as you said, 1,900 and Faster Gator, and I said Faster Gator are the other 2. But I'm going to key Normandy Coast and Keep It Easy as win bets, and then they play exactas with Faster Gator and 1,900 in the race. It could be a really interesting race. This Normandy Coast is very intriguing to me.
Yeah, I think the undercard is a lot of fun. I mean, obviously the Preakness itself is going to be the highlight and is fun in and of its own right, but the undercard has some horses that I think could play out over the course of the season in their various divisions, which was true a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't ask you about the Friday-Saturday stakes, but certainly I came away very satisfied Oaks Derby weekend. Despite the weather, I don't think that negated things at all. You had Mind Frame and Fierceness, who both kind of stepped from 3-year-olds last year into that 4-year-old picture, which is really making the handicap division a lot of fun. this year. Copian, I think, was impressive. I thought the whole weekend gave us some horses to watch as the year progresses.
No, I agree. There was some really first of all, it was very formidable. Hats off to Churchill on the track. I mean, I think that we had one $26 winner. It's very formidable, good cheer. I can't wait to see her come back. We'll see what happens with Torpedo Inn, of course. Yeah. But lots of good races, and I can't remember the horse's name, but the horse that won the 14th race on Derby Day, also very impressive. It was a maiden or a first level allowance. And that horse also, you can look it up, was really impressive. So I am looking forward to a lot of these, and we're going to, we have coming up in the handicap division, of course, we'll have the Foster at the end of June for some of the older horses, and then as these 3-year-olds progress, a lot of fun. Copian was really, really good. Mandela is very conservative. He doesn't ship out of California much, but hopefully, she'll definitely, if she's around, she'll be a Breeders' Cup Filly American Sprint horse in the fall.
Yeah, it was a fun weekend, as this weekend is promising to be as well. Ellis, appreciate the conversation as always. Again, tell people to swing by your Twitter feed, which points you in various directions each and every week to some of the handicapping thoughts you have. But we appreciate that you sharing those with us this morning, and we'll talk again.
Thanks very much, Seth. It's my pleasure.
Appreciate it. Ellis Starr, National Racing Analyst for Equibase. We'll be back right after this.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Haven't signed up for a Capital OTB account yet? Now's the time to take advantage of the sign-up bonus. Open up a new account with $200 or more, bet $400 by the end of the month, and receive a bonus $200 into your account. Plus, you can take advantage of everything an OTB account has to offer. Wagering from any device, live streaming, racing info, past performances, online promotions, and more. Sign up today and take advantage of the new account bonus. Details at capitalotb.com.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Welcome back, and thanks to our guests this morning. Again, we taped everybody yesterday. Dave Rodman, Jeremyb, Plonk, Ellis Starr. Hopefully we gave you some good thoughts on Preakness and some of the undercard stakes as well on this Saturday, coming up a little bit at Pimilco. And don't forget, it's a 10:30 early post time, 10:30 post time at Pimilco. If you come down to the race book, we'll be open and open late as well here at the race book, so keep that in mind. Also, we have a Preakness Day bankroll here at the race book. That should be fun. Come on down, take your chance at getting on the bankroll team, put your name in the hat, and see if you can get a little extra something on this Saturday, as well as the King of the Hill contest as well. All of that happening Saturday afternoon. Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. And before I wrap up, I do want to give you the dark horse play of the day. I went over to Belmont. I looked at the Preakness card, and with weather issues and whatnot, I just wasn't sure. I wanted to kind of land there, but I thought I'm going to go over to Belmont because I think there's a better chance. The grass races interested me at both venues, and I think looking at the weather forecast as I planned this out yesterday, it looked like Belmont may be more dependable as far as the grass. So our dark horse play today, brought to you by the Dark Horse Mercantile and Impressions of Saratoga in downtown Saratoga, both right on Broadway and worth a visit for sure. I'm going to go to race number 10, Belmont at the Big A. Again, they're on the turf. I have it 9, 5, 8, and 3, but our dark horse will be number 9, Trail of Gold. Goes out for Dave Donk. Second start of the season, and this New York bred showed a little bit of promise last year. Broke the maiden in the second career start, and then they were ambitious trying some stakes races. ran fourth in a series of stakes races, but came back to improve that, running third in the seasonal debut in allowance company, albeit, but with a much improved buyer number. So seems to have matured from the 2 to 3-year-old season. Now we have the second start with a seasonal debut under the belt. And I think it's kind of an evenly matched field. We're getting 6-1 on the morning line, and I don't see anyone else in here who jumps off the page at me. So this one, again, intriguing in the second start of the season, having shown some improvement from 2 to 3. Our dark horse play today for Saturday. It's race number 10, Belmont at the Big A, horse number 9, Trail of Gold. And again, thanks to the folks at Dark Horse Mercantile and Impressions of Saratoga for their sponsorship of the Dark Horse Play of the Day during the Triple Crown season. And thanks to you as well for tuning in to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. We'll be in a little bit later, take you through some of the early races at Pimilco before we step out in the front side to play the Preakness Day bankroll here at the Clubhouse Racebook. But again, we'll be back in a little bit as we kick things off with the early post time at Pimilco, 10:30. The pregame show for Pimilco will come up before that, so stay tuned for all of it right here on Capital OTB TV. I'm going to wrap it up for Racing Across America. Back in tomorrow at 10 a.m. for a recap of all the great Saturday action. So we'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Offtrack Betting.